Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third ever M3 market update on YouTube. I'm Melody Wright. Just want to say welcome back. There's a lot going on this week. For many of us, we started the week by hearing about Chase stepping in for First Republic after the bank failed. So for many of you, that could have been a pretty shocking start to the week. So a lot going on in terms of what's happening in the markets. And so importantly, I want to start this week by just giving you a couple of references. If you were surprised by what happened, I would highly encourage you to subscribe and to watch the daily YouTube videos that come out of Eurodollar University. I was not at all surprised by what happened. In fact, I was just sort of counting down. So Jeff Snyder and the updates he gives there are incredible, and we'll keep you posted on what's happening day over day because there's a lot of disruption in the treasury markets, etc. So I don't want you guys to be surprised. Wanted to give that reference early on. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that show as well. But yes, things are escalating, in my opinion. If you see the M3 market update this week, you're going to see that I focus on that a bit. I feel like we are in that time where, as people continue to be nervous, the shrillness of their arguments is increasing, etc. So welcome back. We'll get started here in a second. I appreciate everybody's feedback. Please keep it coming. However, I will say that there's a lot going on for me. I have clients, etc. So this will get incrementally better. It won't be better overnight. This week I turned off my HVAC, moved my mic closer, etc. And I'll try not to pound the desk for those of you that have sensitive ears. But if it isn't up to the quality it needs to be, please check back in 6 weeks. It will get incrementally better. And, I've spent a lot of my life trying to be perfect. I just don't have time for that right now because I feel like what's important is getting this information out to you guys. Okay, so I quickly want to start with sort of picking up from my video last week about hearing that there was a post from Housing Wire and places like that about inventory bottoming. So I absolutely think that we're going to start to see this drum being beaten. However, it's talking about Eurodollar University. One of the things that I think those guys helped me see, Jeff Snyder and his original co-host Emil Kalinowski, is that these economists can say whatever they want to because no one ever holds them accountable. Essentially, they can always say that it was a black swan event or something that came out of nowhere. For instance, all of these people that have been pounding the table about, low inventory, they're going to say things like, well, how on earth would we have ever known that, this shadow inventory would come back onto the market? Well, they knew because many of them did read my Housing Wire article because they were part of the same series as me. So, I think that it's important to be paying attention to all of these different metrics as I kind of talk to you guys about, because the data is not going to be representative of the actual situation. And anybody can pick up one piece and actually, make an argument. Like, for instance, today I'm seeing already my M3 update getting a little more traction because of the huge increase in Las Vegas, which we will absolutely talk about. But again, I think a lot of people think that I put certain things out because I'm trying to do it for the shock value. That is the exact opposite of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to keep everybody grounded as we kind of get tossed about on this ship because, as I've said, we are kind of navigating the soup right now. It is so cloudy, we don't really understand what's going on. And I would highly encourage people as well to kind of go back and look at the same people, and I won't mention names here because I have no desire to actually try to call somebody out. I'm here to actually give context, but if you go look at the same people out there today making certain projections, go look at what they were saying in 2007 and 2008, because you will absolutely see that they were not on the money back then either. And this isn't personal These folks are only as good as the tools that they have. And I believe that the tools that exist today just aren't adequate enough. So we have to look at multiple data metrics. And sorry if I just keep repeating this, I just think it's so critical that everyone kind of expands their view versus making it more narrow. And again, we've set the foundation. We're kind of building this view block by block so that we can track what's happening. And we'll be the first to see it. I mean, this week, what happened in Vegas, this will be interesting to watch. Now, I'm the kind of person, I'm very cautious on things like this. So we're definitely going to be talking about this again next week to see if the increase in listings has sustained, because it was a bit shocking. So something else that was a little shocking this week, so I went ahead and just decided to start, because Realtor.com had started putting some foreclosures up there. I wanted to go ahead and start capturing those for the cities that I'm tracking. Now again, there's some folks on Twitter that are talking a lot about how us inventory people are shifting to a narrative about foreclosures, and we're doing that because the inventory didn't materialize. That is not at all what's happening. I think that, I've said the inventory will materialize. It'll probably be late Q3 with the information that I have today. But again, with events such as First Republic, you never know what could happen. If it's bad enough, government could intervene again. There could be fiscal stimulus again. So we've set the foundation. Now we're going to track, the path. But this foreclosures is very interesting because still in my mind, I think I still have the bias of, in many ways of the last war that I'm trying to let go of, which is that foreclosure takes so much time when these assets are Fannie, Freddie, Ginnie assets, and they're on a bank or non-bank's balance sheet, because there are so many rules you have to follow for the securitization trust. And so I will be doing some deep dives on MBS and this machine, because if you don't understand this machine, you will never understand default. Additionally, I promised a viewer that I would do some deep dive into loss mitigation options that are currently available, and I'd also talk about some that are upcoming. So I will definitely do that this weekend. That will be a specific deep dive into the different loss mitigation options that'll be for borrowers struggling. But I think when I always think about default, I'm thinking about that scenario, and I have to catch myself and say, okay, remember the all cash sales, because those won't be sitting in the same place on a bank's balance sheet. Those will go faster. I mentioned sort of Texas in my Substack this week because, property taxes were a huge sticker shock to everybody there. And so when you don't pay your taxes, then you get a tax lien by the county. If you don't pay that, then they can take you to tax sales. So this is a big thing that can happen all over the country. And suddenly for those mom and pop or bigger mom and pop investors that maybe, bought 10 to 15 properties, we might see these when they show up at auction. And so important to be tracking in states like Texas and Georgia. Those states typically go very quickly tracking these foreclosures. So I've added this metric, and I have to tell you, I was a bit surprised. Now, historically, these numbers are very, very, very low. And again, I'm not adding these because I think that foreclosure is what's going to actually drive the biggest, home price depreciation. I don't. I think it's going to take some time. However, it's going to be part of the narrative. And so, looking at even this amount of number was a bit shocking, especially Chicago, about 245 listed. I think the other thing about the cities that I pasted in my Substack that have foreclosures is essentially that the mix is very interesting. Right now, what you're seeing are So you're seeing quite a few luxury properties as well as just land that's in foreclosure. To me, this is telling about who is coming under distress at the moment. And then I take, in terms of still staying on sort of the default metric, I also, have different clients where I can see what's actually happening in their books. And in my Substack, I linked to the Black Knight Mortgage Monitor charts that came out recently, waiting for the report. And in it, it sounds like all good news for the most part about delinquency going down. But what you can't hear in that is, kind of some of the seasonal things that are actually driving that decrease in delinquency. Historically, every March, tax season, April, spring, you often see people making bulk payments as they get either their bonus or they get their tax refund. And so you're going to see a lot of people become current that you haven't seen previously. And so, that's why it looks like default is really going down. But I can tell you from what I'm seeing in portfolios is that stress under that 60 days, you're seeing it more and more. You're also seeing an increase in payoffs. Payoffs aren't, if we were in a very low rate environment, seeing those tick up, that makes sense. But it doesn't make as much sense to see those tick up now. And typically what's happening, just in my experience working in default, is that those payoffs actually tend to tick up right before you see distress, as people realize, oh gosh, my property insurance is going up, my taxes are going up, what am I going to do? And then, okay, let me sell it. If I can, let me sell it and get out of it. So, and also part of what I do for many clients is look at, even comments about between, the servicer and the borrower. And you can hear the stress is increasing for all the reasons that I've been focusing on, insurance. I highly recommend you guys check out that Spaces on Florida. Yes, it's Florida, but it's in Louisiana and it's coming soon to a city near you. So, these increased costs are going to make it significantly harder for people to carry this debt. And so default is going to be a subject that we start to spend more and more time on. And I want to ground you guys in the facts because, I think people remember just saying the word foreclosure. For most of us, that invokes some really awful images from the crisis. So I'm not here for headlines, but I'm here to keep us all grounded in what's happening. So just some notables that I'll mention because of what actually happened with Las Vegas this week in terms of increasing of listings. So Las Vegas has 34 properties listed for foreclosure, and these are high valued properties. Very interesting. I would not have thought that yet, just based on what I had seen in Vegas. But, seeing this massive increase in week over week listings tells me something is happening there. It could have something to do with the 14,000 Airbnbs that are listed. Again, I'll keep repeating this, but if you search Las Vegas, you're going to get 300 listings. There is no way that people are cash flowing those 14,000 properties in the way that a lot of them need to be. Not all of them, but from what I hear when I was there and just reading some news coverage, it sounds like a lot of retirees bought either a second home or just bought something down there and decided to Airbnb it as a way to make cash flow, prior to retirement or to finally settling. So this is going to be interesting to watch some of these cities where we know that we have that multiple owner listing and multiple listings where that's an owner listing multiple properties, and we start to see just default this is, and then of course rent decreases. This is how we're going to be able to see what's happening in these cities, and this is how we're going to be able to pinpoint when this becomes a national problem instead of a local one. And as I mentioned last week, that's a lot of what I'm focusing on, so you can be prepared for what's coming to a city near you. Guys, this week's update was called Charlie Foxtrot. For some of you that are familiar with certain military acronyms and slang, that means a pretty messed up situation. And so we are in a messed up situation. It seems like every 5 minutes these days, I'm reading another article that's just, it makes me shake my head and think, how are we going to get out of this mess? But the point of these updates, the point of this data collection is to figure out how to get out of this mess, because we will have to. Moving on to the specific updates for this week, this week is focused kind of on the listings for sale as well as the Airbnb prices. Next week and the following week will be when we'll start to see some real action and rent as sort of the end of month finishes, beginning of month, kind of that reshuffle you'll see in vacancy, etc. So we'll have some much better rent updates next week. But for this week, this is an interesting, I almost fell out of my chair when I saw Las Vegas coming in at 31.8% increase for listings week over week, over 1.7K. Now, could this be a data mistake? Absolutely. So we're going to watch this one. I would have expected to kind of see Vegas be incrementally increasing, not such a large number, but I think now that March Madness is over, I linked an article in my Substack about Taylor Swift, being there in March, and they think that's why they had kind of an increase in tourism. So maybe the spring's over, maybe it's time to offload the Airbnb. We don't know for sure, but we are definitely going to keep our eyes on that. This is another interesting one, Hoboken up at almost 17%. And then a joke on Twitter, Encinitas up 6.2%. This is a city I track for one particular user, but there is a foreclosure there as well. So, I think in some of these higher priced areas, we definitely are going to see luxury properties. And I think that could be pretty telling. So it's going to be important to kind of watch the mix of what's being listed for foreclosure. Salt Lake City up at 4.54%. El Cajon, another favor I'm tracking, up at 4.18%. These smaller cities, as I kind of mentioned last week, it's not going to be, it could be one property that really raises that, etc. But again, it's important to that local market. And guys, if you want the full kind of listing of what happened in each of the now 57 cities, I think I'm tracking where I have data, I will definitely share that with you. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's for the sake of brevity and then just the limitation of some of the tools right now that I'm not sharing it. But this is one of the things that will actually improve over time as well. So the one thing while we're talking about listings for sale that I definitely want to mention is that going back to home prices, I really believe that we will see some increases in home prices over the next couple of months in specific areas. Why? Well, I mentioned some of it last week. One will be because of the builders and the new builds concessions that are happening. They're doing everything in their power to keep that top line price. No one wants to market these assets. So they're going to do rate buy downs. They're going to do all kinds of things. Maybe they pay your solar for a year, whatever. They're going to figure out how to keep that top line price, because once they sell one home in a project at a reduction, then essentially they have, and if it's significant enough, that moves them toward their own accounting practice from a cost modeling to actually fair market value. And so this week I posted an article that was sent to me. I can't remember the user right now, but it was great. That basically showed Lennar having sold one of these projects to someone who's going to use the subdivision as a captive for its workers. So in that way, essentially they got about $400K per property. They were all listed at $499, but essentially if you move one project completely out, you don't have to move it to fair market value. And so essentially it's not going to come at the same loss, and looks and could be sort of hidden in terms of what this means for the rest of the book. So these are the kinds of deals that you're going to start to see. But coming back to home prices, the builders are keeping that price. Additionally, I believe there's very specific demand out there right now. And some of those folks are still capable of paying that higher price. I think that is going to slow significantly. I think I'm already seeing evidence of it. But what that's going to do is mean that likely what is selling is going to be your higher priced houses. And then as demand dwindles at that price point, then your denominator basically dwindles as well. And so we're going to be stuck thinking that these home prices are here for longer than they're really going to be here. But in my opinion, with what I'm seeing going on in the economy, these home prices will start to go back in the other direction, probably at the beginning of Q3, and then most definitely probably by late or end of Q3, we'll start to see this really all of these themes start to materialize. That's my working hypothesis right now. But each week, as another bank fails or whatever happens, we're gonna stay on top of it. We've got the framework. Okay, so quickly just talking about cities with the biggest sort of increases in listings since the start. These names are going to start to sound familiar. Again, if you want all the cities, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. But San Ramon up at 75%, San Francisco at 70%, San Jose 46%, Hoboken 42.47%, Denver 41.94%, Coeur d'Alene 41.71%, Boston 36.33%, and Austin at 35.23%. So, this is, again, from January, from very low, so 70% shouldn't sound like the world is ending, but it is showing that even in this frozen housing market, there are places where people feel compelled to list their homes. And so, most of the narratives out there talk about people not wanting to list their home because of that low rate, etc. This kind of shows a contrarian story, which is why I'm so focused on it. Okay, Airbnb, we're just going to look at prices. This week definitely went up. I think this might be similar, again, theorizing here. We'll watch the data to be sure, but I think this might be similar to what's happening with home prices. We're going into that graduation, wedding season, and likely, this is an average, likely what's happening is the people who can travel are the people that can still pay a pretty good price. And so as these Airbnbs rent at these higher prices, again, because that's just the average price, if the lower price properties aren't renting out, I don't think we can necessarily take that as, hey, prices are just going up. I think that what this could be, similar to how we always talked about the K-shaped recovery, is that, there's a certain part of our population that is still able to travel. So we have to watch these and just see over time. I'll be sharing averages, etc., in the next few weeks as well, so we can see what that trending average is. Okay, so increases, I just did 3 cities this time with the average price increases, the top 3. Salt Lake City at 28.93%, Sedona at 22.55%, Huntsville at 19.35%. Again, those are all increases in average Airbnb prices. Now, the top, this is a little more interesting. Again, one of them might be a data outlier from last week, but top 3 cities with average Airbnb price decreases week over week. Nashville at 48%. Last week there was some crazy average prices at Airbnb, so not surprised to see that come significantly down this week. And again, maybe we'll see Las Vegas come down next week. We're going to stay on top of it and watch. Miami down at a negative 15.89%. I found this very interesting because there were very few cities that didn't have increases. So for it to be Nashville and Miami in this top spot and to be so significant is kind of interesting. We'll keep our eye on it. And then Costa Mesa, basically down 5.48%. So another California city. Okay, so lots going on in the housing market. Lots of what I would call the beginning of hysteria in kind of in the media with certain folks who are pushing this narrative. We talked about it last week. I could tell they were definitely more aggressive, but now the tone is almost changing to what I would say is kind of like the shrillness that I think will likely increase because folks are looking for certainty, but they're not looking hard because I think they're really afraid of what they're going to find. And so, again, this is the time where everywhere you turn is going to look like a Charlie Foxtrot or a Snafu. We have to build a battle plan for getting through the next several years because this problem, no matter who steps in, how they step in, this problem will not be fixed overnight, nor will it sort of consolidate to its final sort of death knell for some time. So we are all going to have to be paying attention to multiple factors, multiple drivers, especially what's going on with this banking crisis. I believe this is where we're going to start to see serious distress with commercial real estate. So hope everybody can join me on that Spaces this Thursday. We won't have all the answers, but we can talk to you about how this works, likely what we'll see, and then any latest updates on these. Okay. All right, so that's going to be it for this week. Again, incrementally each week, I hope that these get better. Please be patient with me. I'm more focused right now on getting the information out than being perfect. So that being said, any questions, please reach out to me on Twitter at M3_Melody. That's MELODY. On my Substack, which, when I post to Twitter, doesn't get a ton of views. I think I used some of the other workarounds that didn't work either. I think I have an idea for next week, but the Substack is where I really go into this with a lot of detail, so I highly encourage you to do that as well, to read that. And then LinkedIn, Melody Wright, WRIGHT. That's where if you need a document from me, etc., reach out to me there. Happy to respond and have any kind of dialogue there or answer questions about what's going on. So thank you again, guys, for joining this week and listening. There's a lot going on, a lot coming up. We're gonna, in the next several weeks, we'll get a lot of the average home prices, average days on market from Redfin and places like that. So there'll be a lot incoming, and I highly encourage you to tune in so that you can decipher it and understand what's going on. So thank you so much. Thank you for being patient with me, and I will see you next week. Thanks, guys.